The video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Father, we just want to honor and praise and worship and magnify and glorify you, my King, for the position that you have placed us in you, my King. We are beginning to understand how to operate out of the apostolic in the kingdom of heaven, out of the four faces. We're beginning to understand how to operate out of the prophetic, out of the four faces, out of the kingly part of the four faces, and the priestly part of the four faces. Father, we are meant to legislate from out of you into the earth. And you're revealing to us such mysteries, Lord. We are beginning to legislate things into the earth that we never thought possible, Father. We are beginning to align things in the earth. We're beginning to propel things back into place. Father, as the ecclesia, I know that there's so much taking place. There's so much being revealed and so many secrets being given to the sons of God. And we're beginning to understand, Lord. And it's exciting. And I know, Father, some are still trying to get into heaven. And that's okay. But I know that this time and season is for the ecclesia to begin to understand what needs to be legislated into the earth. We need to align the kingdom of heaven, of the kingdom of earth. And we can only do it from out of the four faces. We can only do it from out of the Father. And so, Father, I ask you in the name of Yeshua tonight that as we do the scrolls, the house of scrolls, we will begin to understand that everyone in this room has a specific destiny, a specific purpose. And out of what's written, out of what you've agreed, we have to live, move, and have our being, Father. And reminding ourselves in all of that we live and move and have our being in you. Yes. That we can do nothing outside of Christ. We can do nothing outside of Yeshua. Father, we love you, we praise you, we honor you, my King. We thank you for everything you do. You're majestic. Thank you. Thank you, my Father. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Woo!
Glory. Thank you.
How you guys doing? Okay, so I'm not gonna do a recap. I'm just gonna kind of go back on kind of discussing what we've done over the last couple of weeks, months really. Just to remind you that we have done a recap on the laws of Zion. Laws of Zion was sacrifice, harmony, resonance, time and space, lordship, kingship, sonship, creation, legislation, trading, wisdom, and chancellorship. And we did a session on each of those, right?
Right.
We did the laws of Jerusalem. It's laws of law of the spirit of life, sin and death, love, faith, sowing and reaping, firstborn, abundance, justice, righteousness, judgment, grace, mercy. Okay, and I'll be busy doing the 12 chancellor houses. Now, I'm not going to go do all 12, and I told you this before, right? I'm only doing what I've engaged. I'm only doing what I have a revelation understanding of. So what we've done up to this point is last week we did the weapons, house of weapons. Tonight we're doing house of scrolls. We'll touch base on house of mantles, and we'll see where the Father takes us from there. Okay, there's much more. We don't have to teach on these things. I really want to teach on what I have an understanding of. And even the stuff that I sometimes teach of, I don't have full understanding of. But every time I teach it, we've gone around the mountain in another dimension, looking at the same thing from a different angle. Some of the times we've engaged into it, and so we begin to see and understand and have a greater revelation of things we teach. So it's not that we're not allowed to teach or touch on anything we haven't engaged yet. We have engaged portions of it. I believe you can teach on it.
All right.
Because every time you go over it again, you are going to go into it in a deeper level, and you can teach the same, but in a different, from a different view, different, more higher dimension of intimacy, if that makes any sense.
All right.
Okay, so we have discussed scrolls several times, I believe. There's always some portion of what I teach that has to do with scrolls, because it is really your key to everything you're doing. As a matter of fact, you cannot continue your walk without having your scroll. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be a Christian if you don't have your scroll. Don't misunderstand me. But the Father's desire, matter of fact, I would go as far as to say the Father's heartbeat for you right now is that you as a spirit being have your scroll in hand. And also remind yourself, we are talking that there is more than one scroll. You've got your own, you've got scroll, you've got callings, you've got books of destiny. And the Father really wants you to begin to walk out each one of those mountains that's applied to you in your scroll. I'm not talking about the 7 mountains that we've heard preached on. I'm talking about the mountains given to you as a son of the Most High that you need to occupy a sphere of rule over. We'll get to that in more detail. As a spirit being, we have all been given a unique calling and mandates that are written for us in our book of destiny.
All right.
I cannot do what you do, and you cannot do what I do. I hear it all the time where men of God really just break other men down. And then they love breaking down eons, especially revelationists, especially revivalists. Because most men of God just wants everybody to do the same thing. But everybody cannot do the same thing.
Yes.
I cannot be a revivalist.
All right.
Even if I try, it's just not what's on my scroll. It's not who I am. Is it all about salvation? Let me tell you something. It is not all about salvation. Read your Bible.
Come on.
It's all about discipleship. I don't know where we get this from, that everything is about souls. All is about souls. It's not about souls.
Come on.
It's about discipleship. It's about training. It's about getting you to be mature so you can go do the discipleship that's meant for you to be done in the earth.
All right.
So we can become the sons and the daughters of the earth.
Come on now.
The Bible never tells us that we're to lead people to Jesus. It says that the angels will bring in the harvest.
All right.
Now, have you ever read that?
Amen.
So why are we always saying that it's all about souls? You have to lead someone to Jesus. You have to go do this. You have to go do that. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying that's not what it's about.
Come on.
We have made Christianity about things that's not the Father's heartbeat. Now, am I saying the Father's heartbeat's not souls? That's not what I'm saying. Amen. The Father's heartbeat is definitely souls. But it is for souls to be discipled.
Amen.
For souls to be trained and equipped.
That's good. That's good.
I have been in meetings where revivalists has preached for 45 minutes and I have no idea what they were talking about because they were just sharing testimony. They were talking about healings. They were talking about miracles and signs and wonders. And they might see an angel here. They might see an angel and it's great, but there's no meat. There's no teaching. There's nothing with substance. We cannot only have that in the church. Now, we've had that for the last 500 years, if not longer.
All right.
And therefore, we have a bunch of babies in the church. So something needs to change. If you're consistently doing something that's inconsistent to you, you're going to be inconsistent.
Right. Amen. Come on.
I don't know if that makes any sense. A book of life often does not match this, so it is important to find out what is written in your book of destiny. God is not waiting to reveal your scroll at some time in your future. How many of you understand that?
Come on.
God is not waiting to reveal it. There's not a specific time. When you're born, there's a scroll, and you need to engage it.
Yes. Woo, that's good.
Well, I'm not ready for my scroll yet. Yes, you are. Matter of fact, you were ready for your scroll before you were even a Christian. We all need... We were all designed to live out our scrolls from the start of our lives. Now, let me also remind you, that does not mean that if you're only getting your scroll halfway through your life, that you've missed half of what's on your scroll. What's on your scroll operates as spirit, therefore it has no time and space. The Father can and the Father will take what is on your scroll and put it on the timeline where you act for the full manifestation of it.
Amen. That's good.
And so when you're 80 years old and you for the first time see your scroll and you think to yourself, well, there's no way that I can fulfill this. You will start with what needs to be fulfilled where you act.
Right where we are. Yeah.
And you will fulfill it. You will, I remember one thing. I engaged in the spirit once and I hear a man speak to me in the spirit and he says to me, you will fulfill your entire scroll.
All right.
And that was the best prophecy I've ever received in my life. Now, of course, that's a prophetic word, but I need to understand there's condition to that.
Yes, it is.
I can't go sit on my butt and do nothing.
Right.
I have to engage it. I have to do what's on my scroll. I remember ministering at a church the other day, at my mother church, as one. They used to be called Life Point. Now they're as one because Life Point flooded out, and then they reestablished the destiny scroll for the church. It's a prophetic, not a prophetic, an apostolic base, an apostolic porthole. It's a phenomenal place. But the lady, the pastor, I would say, they have the apostolic, and they've got the full fivefold running out of their ministry, right, which is incredible. So I say the pastor, but she's not the pastor, but she does pastoral work. And she says that the Father asked her to ask me before I start, why do I do what I do? Good. And I said to her, well, first of all, it's because the Father has given me my scroll. Yeah. I don't do what I do because I think it's a good idea. Right. I do what I do because this is what's written. This is what was given to me on a scroll. I ate it and it began to open up for me.
That's good.
Now, it's not going to be the same for everybody. I didn't read it, but some have read it. I went into a room, and in this room there was thousands of scrolls and books, and I could just see things of the future and of the past all in one. And when I looked at a specific spot in this room, my name or my scroll came out.
That's good.
And I saw my name on it. And as a matter of fact, the first thing I saw was Son of Fire. And I immediately knew it was me. I took that scroll, and out of my knowledge of the Word, I ate it. Now, I don't want to go into detail of what happened, but the idea is there was an encounter that I had, and I had to go back into that encounter multiple amounts of times. And you have to remind yourself, it's not something you just do once. I don't see it. And then you just give up. Well, that's not the attitude we're looking for here.
Come on.
Okay, just because you don't see something doesn't mean it's not there. My sons are Olympic, I don't know how to express this, but one of my sons, my second oldest, would say, Dad, can you please help me look for my phone? I can't find it anywhere. And I'll be like, it's right there. What are you talking about? Oh, I looked everywhere for it. I said, no, you didn't. It's right there on the couch. And I don't know if it's just a child thing, but that's how my kids do it. They would go into the room, and they would come back, I can't find it. And I would say, well, you didn't look for it. Go back into the room. Go back, and first of all, the room's a mess. Go back into the room and find it. It's there. I know it's there because I saw it there. Whatever it was, whether it's a costume, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's socks, whether it's shoes, I know it's there. They might not see it because I always say to them, you look through your butt. And maybe it's not the nicest thing to say, but that's the facts. Now, I want to go as far as to say the church does the exact same thing. I don't see it. I can't find it. It's not there. Go back in and look for it. Of course it's there. We're looking at a kingdom that is part of an infinite God. It's bigger than what we can even begin to fathom. That's why you have to go in the Spirit to find it.
In the Spirit to find it. Amen.
You have mandates for things that you can do in heaven that are different from what you work out on the earth. The Father's desire is to want you to understand that your purpose is not just in the earth.
Come on. That's good.
I mean, there's a lot that we need to do in the earth, but the Father has so much for us to do in the Spirit. You know, much of what I do in the earth now first took place in the Spirit. But you know, if you struggle with who you are, if you struggle to find out what you believe the Father has for you, there's rooms within the kingdom of heaven that reflects the future. Which means you can go into the kingdom of heaven and see your timeline in your tomorrow.
That's good.
To know what you look like so you can go back into your yesterday and see what needs to be done for you to look like you do in your tomorrow.
Right. Fix it. Come on.
And you have your scroll to read. And I remind you, you cannot open your scroll and see everything at the same time. You can, at any given time, only see 2 pages. And even if you could see everything, you could only focus on 1 page at a time. I'm going to say, you cannot read 2 pages at the same time. Matter of fact, you can read, if you're a really good reader, you can probably read between 10 and 15 words at the same time.
All right.
And that's pushing it. I read one word at a time. Hence, my reading sucks.
Yeah.
You know, you were taught to read from the middle of the page. How many of you remember that when you were a kid? I had a glitch in my download. I still start from the first word.
Yeah.
So I don't read like you're supposed to. It takes me longer to read. So for me to read takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I believe the Father's desire for us is to constantly go back into what we've done, to constantly go back in and see what's there, because we are lazy.
Yeah.
We are lazy to engage. We are lazy to find out what He really has for us. Yeah, but what I'm doing now is just fine.
Yeah.
What if it is fine, but it's works of iniquity?
Woo.
It's works that has no value. You say, but I'm leading people to Jesus. I'm casting out demons. I'm raising the dead. And I'm healing the sick.
Works of iniquity.
But many have done that. And then He says, I don't know you.
Woo.
So many have cast out demons, raised the dead, did all these things. But yet He comes and says, I don't know you.
Have mercy, Lord. Mercy.
See, I have to find what was given to me to do. Because I can do all these things that looks really good, but if it's not written on my scroll, there's no reward for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't do these things that's on my scroll for a reward,
No.
but that intimacy that what's on my scroll takes me into, the relationship that it builds, because I have 100% peace at what I do.
Amen.
You know how many times I come into a meeting and I lie down there and my body says to me, you are not in the mood to do this tonight. And my spirit immediately says, well, it's not about what I feel like.
All right.
It's not about what I want to do. It's about who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't do this because it's something I come and do. It's something that I am.
Yes. Come on. That's
I have agreed to this before the foundations of the earth. When He said, are you ready to go into your mother's womb? I said, yes. And I agree to everything that's written on my scroll.
all right. Brings glory.
How are you guys doing?
Yes, Lord.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah 1:5. He was destined to be, and that's just a section, that's a small portion of his destiny.
Amen.
To be a prophet in the nation. I'm going to understand, we are not only called to be something in the nation. We're not only called, I was born to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But on my destiny scroll, it was all for America. Not all for it, but most of it.
All right.
I never saw that part. Matter of fact, I didn't want to come to America. I did not like Americans. No, I never met an American in my life, so I don't even know why.
What you hear.
God knew us before we were formed in the womb. He knew us before we were a physical being.
Thank you.
How many of you are reminded of that? I want you to find yourself constantly reminding yourself that you were not born a baby.
All right.
My physical body was a baby. I am an ancient being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Woo.
At that point, we existed, and He knew us. As a spiritual being, God is spirit, and we have come out of God. Our spirit is eternal. It will never die, because it is of the essence of God.
That's good.
It is not just His breath. We are formed out of the dust that comes from His glory.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I remind you, and I say this again, when we were formed, there was no corrosion, there was no death, there was no sin, there was no corruption.
All right.
And sand, ground, that which we find outside that the grass grow on, comes from corruption, from corrosion, from death, from sin.
Yeah.
That's why the gold is underneath the ground.
Wow.
He wants us to understand that we come from His fullness.
Yeah.
That's why part of our lives is His breath, the Ruach. How are you guys doing?
Great.
For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. This God that we serve only has the good in view for you.
Thank you, Lord.
If you read your scroll, it doesn't talk about depression, sickness, disease, or death at all in any way, fashion, or form. It doesn't talk about struggles, frustration, irritations in any way, fashion, or form. And as a matter of fact, only time any of that stuff comes into your life is when you're involved and Satan's involved. And Satan's only involved because of your gates and your doors in your life that's shut, closed, or full of bumps. Or the poop in your life. Don't look at me with that tone. We all have poop in our lives.
Yeah.
God's plan for us is to enjoy peace and wholeness. His plan is to prosper us and to see us succeed in everything we touch. As a matter of fact, he would go as far as to say that everywhere you put your feet, that place belongs to you. Everything you touch with your hands can turn to gold.
Wow. Thank you.
Why do you think there's myths, stories about a man that whatever he touches turns to gold? It's not a real story. It could be, but that's what the Father wants us to understand.
Midas. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Because that won't be a good thing. If I touch this thing, it turns to gold, we won't be able to move it. And it will break the wheels. If I try to get into my car and it turns to gold. If I kiss my wife, it turns to gold. That's a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah.
So it's spiritual, right?
Amen.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
So his desire is for you to know what you are here for. His desire is for you to know what and who you are meant to be. You know, he wants to give you your new name. He wants you to know what your name is. My parents named me Gustav Le Roux. Now let me promise you, when they named me, they did not know that my name means the red staff, the red royal staff as strong as a lion.
Come on now.
Le Roux means red, Gustav means royal staff or fighter's rod, and Leonardus means as strong as a lion. They didn't know that. They also didn't know when I was born that I was going to have red hair.
All right.
I have an auburn type of hair, so it's the same color as my beard. It's not quite ginger, it's more like a dark red, but it's still red. As my destiny, as my name, and it's a very dark red, the name Le Roux. It's not like the sauce. It's like, they call it the color of war. It's like dry blood. My parents did not know that. But it was predestined. Now, can you have a wrong name? Of course. You can have the wrong name, and God can change it. But when I was in heaven, I was called Son of Fire, not Gustav Le Roux.
All right.
The Leonardus wasn't part of it. And I always thought Leonardus was a terrible name. And as a matter of fact, my parents, they wanted to call me Leonard. That was the actual name that they wanted to do. But when they got my birth certificate back from our government, it said Leonardus. But how many of you know something? Those two words, those two names means the exact same thing. I think that's very interesting. See, the Father's desire for you is to begin to walk in the heavens in the capacity that you were created to operate. And see, if Jesus is not only there for my salvation, but for my restoration, then we begin to understand that He came to restore me.
Amen.
He came to restore me so I can again operate from the dimensions that He's made available for me to walk in. So that I can see in the way, in the dimension that He has created me to see in. And I can begin to understand who I am.
Thank you, Lord.
Because it's more than just what they told me. I'm not a sinner trying to make it in life. It sounds good because then I can keep you and I can gather as many of you as I possibly can. But there's no training, there's no equipping, and there's no sending. Because if I send you out, then I have less 10%. Less of someone's 10%. And I'm going to struggle with a budget. So I can't send 10 people out if I only have 20 people in my church.
Come on now.
So we'll just gather them and don't teach them what they need to know. Just keep them there for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah. Keep them coming back. Come on.
You know, that's an old way of doing things, old way of perceiving things. But there's still too many out there that's doing it exactly like that.
Amen.
I mean, I remember when we planted the church. We planted a couple of churches when I began to step out with my mother church. And much of what we were taught, now it wasn't It wasn't consciously taught, but it was subconsciously understood, like that was the way it was taught. Gather as many people as you can, because that's success.
That is success, yeah.
But then Jesus had a great successful ministry in the beginning, but then it very quickly came to a great big fall.
Woo.
Because he had the thousands.
Yeah.
And then he had the constant 82, and then he had the constant 12, and then he only had 3. Well, and in today's society, the 3 is a big failure. Matter of fact, when he got crucified, he had nobody except his own mother and John.
1. Come on.
So he had 1.
Yeah.
The others didn't just backslide, they denied him.
Yeah.
And they went back to their old occupations.
Wow.
And of course, the one that denied him is the one that got them all back into the boat.
All right. All right. All right.
We can do more legislation in the heavenly realms than on earth. But by starting to go into heaven with a few, which may then lead to a bench around the mountain. I want you to understand this part. The Father, His desire for you is to understand that what needs to be done in the heavens is more than what needs to be done in the earth.
All right.
Because what we need to do in the heavens is what's going to reflect and start the full fruition of what needs to take place in the earth.
All right. That's good.
That's why you need your mandate, you need your scroll, you need to know what needs to be done. You know, so many times, if I walk with the 7 spirits, I get mandated by them to do certain things in the earth.
All right.
But I've noticed that the walk that I do with them in the spirit, when they teach, when they got now, they don't teach in the way that you perceive it teaching. Now, I'm busy teaching. I've got the mic in my hand, and I'm teaching. I'm speaking, you sitting, you listening.
Right.
In the spirit, it's different. There is a classroom just like this, much bigger, and someone is speaking, but it's an infused understanding and infused knowledge. It's you being in that place where the Spirit of Yahweh consumes you. That knowledge that's carried by one of the 7 spirits literally is infused in you. And as you engage in the heavens, as you engage in worship and adoration, as you go deeper and deeper in the intimacy with the Father, the mystery of what's been engaged is revealed to you.
That's good.
That's why you have to be a discipler. You cannot only be a disciplee. Is there such words? You cannot only be discipled, you have to disciple.
That's good.
That's why I've said it many times. You have to have a spiritual father, someone that teaches you.
Yeah.
You have to have a spiritual brother or sister, someone that walks equally with you, that you can confess to,
Come on. That's good.
that you can share with. And you have to have a son or a daughter that you speak into.
That's good too. Come
Because
on.
that is how you grow.
Amen.
And let me tell you something. Everything in the kingdom of heaven is about you leading someone else to maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is about your growth.
Thank you.
It is important to deal with some foundational things in the spirit realm before embarking on earthly ventures. Always up and down before to and fro.
Amen.
You don't want to go slay dragons if you haven't gone into the heaven yet. That's what the church has been doing for the last 500 years.
Come on now.
We've believed that death is our Savior and we have to die to go to heaven. So therefore we have come against the enemy openly in this kingdom, which we believed. And I don't know, there's too many out there that still believes that Satan has a kingdom. So we believe that Satan has a kingdom, that he has power and that he has rights because this belongs to him. And that we are, I don't know what we are. We are aliens to this earth and we don't have any rights, but we have authority in the name of Jesus, only in the way you speak it, in the name of Jesus. Not your position inside of the yard, the hay, the shed, the bath, the hay, just in the name as you say it.
Come on. Come on.
And then so we do what we've always done and we get the same results as what we've always gotten and we think that that's okay. But I need to understand, Satan does not have a kingdom.
Amen.
He was never given dominion over the earth. Never, ever. Whatever he has, he took because we didn't occupy it. Any form of darkness on this earth is there because the sons and daughters did not take their positions as ones with dominion over the earth.
Amen.
So the legislation that needs to take place, we need to take back. He does not have a kingdom. The kingdom that he has at hand is ours. It's the kingdom of darkness, and it needs to receive the light.
Amen.
So what's out there is not his. We've given it to him, but we can take it back.
It's ours. Amen.
It's his desire for us to take it back because it's not his. It's mine.
Thank you.
The only place that the Bible says he has to his beck and call is under my feet. There's no other place for him. There's no other place allocated for him. While we're on this earth, the only place that he can abide is under my feet.
All right.
In the future, there will be a place for him in the fiery pit.
Yeah.
But not right now. He has a residence under my feet. And we have to begin to understand that. And once we start operating up and down, spending time in the kingdom of heaven, receiving our scrolls, getting understanding, getting revelation, beginning to understand who we are, what the Father has desired for us, how deep He wants us to go, what He wants us to legislate, what's written on my scroll to do, the mandates I receive, not just from the Father, not just out of the mandate room or out of the house of mandates, but also out of the saints of old. The men in white linen, the cloud of witnesses, those who did not finish what they were meant to be done to do, and now they can enter into our day by giving us mantles, by giving us batons to be progressed on and forth, because their desire for us is to run this race and do what needs to be done. There's much that needs to be done, and the church is playing all kinds of ridiculous things.
Game. Come on. Woo.
How you guys doing?
Great.
All right.
In getting your scroll, there's one thing I want you to always remind yourself. This is probably the most important thing. Desire is key. Desire is key. Everything you want, everything you look at in the heavens, everything you've seen, all the visions, everything the Father has shown, revealed to you, to go into it, to desire revelation, to desire deeper intimacy, to go back into it as often as you can. The Father is telling us tonight that desire is key. Spend as much time in the heavenly realm seeking your scroll and asking the Father to imprint on your heart. Sometimes you feel more than see, and that's okay.
Good.
Because sometimes you just can't see. There's just too much that you're looking at that you have no record of. If you understand that, I mean, for us in the earth, it's not easy to have no record of something.
Right.
Because we've seen everything.
Familiar with.
You know, it's just there's so much that we look at and on television and on YouTube and all over the earth. Everything has been seen.
Yeah.
But when you go in the kingdom of heaven, there's things that has never been revealed. There's things in the heavens that's not in the earth.
Right.
I have no record. There's no trace of understanding of what I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. But there's a knowledge in me of what that is. Because I'm a spirit being and my spirit knows what it is.
Spirit knows. Woo. That's good.
As you search your heart for what difference you most want to make. We have the ecclesia as part of our scroll, and you can begin legislation there. And I say this so often, never. Now, sometimes it is just part of the Father's will for you to leave the church you're at, because it's the wrong church for you. It was from the beginning. You were just there because it's the bloodline thing. But most of the time, you're in the perfect place. Because your church is your family. I can't leave my family, and my family can't leave me.
Right.
But I can change my family, and my family can change me. So the legislation for most of us, most of the time, happens in the ecclesia, where you at. Because that's the place where the Father wants to change you, and that's where the Father wants you to begin to bring change.
Wow. Woo.
That's good.
There are dominions in society that you can think about: family, business, governmental, educational, welfare, in healing, media, arts, entertainment. We have to see that ecclesia is not a separate dominion, but to be over and involved in all of these. See, this is the problem that the churches have had up to this point. We are not involved in any of these things. Now, let me also remind you that I do not have to physically be involved in any of these things. But I can be. It won't take from me. But the responsibility I have as a legislator is to operate with what is on the scroll for every mountain in this earth that I have access to. That's why I can't get to the people that you can get to. And you can't get to the people that I can get to.
All right.
So whatever your workplace is, whatever your how your place of occupation is, wherever you live, whatever you do, whatever people you know, wherever you find yourself, that's where you have your influence.
That's good.
Then if I look at my family, if I look at my life, I have the ability to influence the gym industry. And I have, and I constantly will. And I legislate much in the heavens for the people that I meet there. The people that I meet there operate and work in certain areas of the government. And I've met those people, and I legislate things into place for them without them having to know it. I remember prophesying over a gentleman the other day, and he was blown away. He was right at the place where he needed it. He was excited. He's about to start his ministry. He was freaked out with everything. I prayed with him. We became good friends. I didn't know that his father was the mayor.
Come on now.
Not his father, his father-in-law. And I got to intercede. I even got to prophesy and pray for the mayor himself, physically, lay hands on him.
That's good.
See, I meet this young man, and of course we're talking about gym stuff. He's telling me about this amazing supplement that he's using, and he's telling me that it's legal because he is the chief of police. And he wouldn't use it if it's not legal. And so we're talking, and I get an immediate opportunity to begin to intercede and pray over what he is in charge of. A mountain.
A mountain. That's it.
And the education, my kids are in school. I've got a child in pre-K, I've got a child in primary school, I've got a child in junior high. So I have the ability to engage that mountain.
All right.
Of course, I'm involved in the church, so we have the ability to engage the church world.
Yes, Lord.
Let me tell you something. The church leaders, they can't stand me.
That's good.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you to shut up when it's time for you to shut up.
Yeah.
You know, I remember going to a meeting, and I'm busy prophesying over somebody, and it's destiny prophetic. It's an intense word. And this guy comes, leader of leaders, comes right in there. Oh, excuse me, guys, I just wanted you to just... And I stopped the whole thing. I said, excuse me. I am busy prophesying over one of God's sons. Can you please be quiet and let me finish?
All right.
He was not impressed. He was not impressed. Now, I did not mean to offend him, but I was taught that by my father. Do not interrupt the prophet.
That's good.
You can almost hear, you can almost see what they're busy doing. Or are you that spiritually numb that you just don't care?
Right. That's right.
But engaging a mountain for someone else that has great influence in nations, but you want to come do your fleshly thing because that's what your mind. There's a program that needs to be in progress, and we can't stop it by prophesying someone's destiny into their lives.
Have mercy, Lord.
But do I love him, and do I care for him, and do I honor him? Of course I do. I wasn't impressed with him at that moment, but after the meeting I went to him and explained to him what I did and why I did it, and the manner that I did it.
All right.
I might not look like the leader he wanted me to look like. I have earrings in my ear on purpose. I have tattoos on my body on purpose. I weigh 300 pounds of mostly muscle on purpose.
All right.
People don't talk about me face to face. They're pretty good behind my back, but I don't care. People, you know, I said this last time, but the funniest things, oh, he has witches coming into his meetings and he doesn't do anything about it. If a witch comes into my meeting in the spirit, I will slay that dragon.
Come on now.
But if a witch comes into my meeting physically, I'm going to love her to repentance. I'm going to love him to repentance. As a matter of fact, I have a very sneaking suspicion that there's a warlock coming into our meetings in New Orleans.
Come on.
But I'm going to love him to death.
Yeah.
Not physically. I don't want him to die. But I've had witches come into my meetings in Lafayette in the spirit, where the prophetic word to them was, stop or you will die. That was a judgment that I made according to what I felt the Spirit said. Stop or you will die.
Yeah.
Did they die? I don't know. I hope they didn't. I hope they stopped.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
See, the Father shows us who we are. Jesus did things as a nobody. The religious leaders of the day, standing out in the crowd, in charge of synagogues and temples, ruling every mountain in the city, running the financial institution of the nation. They looked at him and thought, who are you, you little pipsqueak? Will you come in here and cause havoc? Who do you think you are? Throwing our tables over, shouting and screaming in our places because of what we do? How can you possibly have authority in this place? Because they didn't see who he was in the spirit.
That's right.
But he knew.
Amen.
You brood of vipers. Oh, they didn't like him. And he didn't care.
Amen.
But he loved them so much that he even died for them on the cross.
Amen. Thank you, Lord.
Let me tell you something. I believe that everyone that enters into the kingdom of heaven has a mantle of love.
That's right.
That's good.
You cannot do what we are doing without a mantle of love.
Yes.
Because I cannot look at the natural when it comes to men. Men are evil in their nature.
That's right.
They have too much hate. When you operate in a religious spirit, when you operate in the flesh doing spiritual things, it is a demonic authority that wants to kill Jesus. Woo, woo.
Right.
That's it.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Remind yourself that you have to keep working on your gateways until you see, hear, perceive well yourself.
Thank you. That's good.
God is not waiting to reveal your scroll. It is up to you to go clear the gateways and set your desire on knowing. God is not just going to do it.
Come on now. Come on.
I'm hungry. Well, I don't want to make food because I have to go to Walmart. Oh, Jesus, help me. I need to go to Walmart. It's so big. You're from one corner to another. It's like doing the whole cardio session. Right? Who wants to do that? Buy the food I want to make, and I have to come home. I have to cut it into little pieces. I have to cook it. No. It's just too much work. So I'll just go to McDonald's or Popeyes. I would say Kentucky, but Slide Out doesn't have a Kentucky. They had one, but it was right next to Cane's.
Yeah.
Who puts two chicken places right next to each other?
You're,
That's a key to disaster.
Yeah, right.
got that.
So one went bankrupt, right? And it was Kentucky. Now the closest Kentucky in Slide Out to us is in Picayune. And no one even knows where that is.
No, we don't have
And by the way, South African Kentucky and American Kentucky does not even taste the same.
Wow.
Anyway, I don't know where that came from, but how you guys doing?
Great.
It's your responsibility to clean up your gateways. Because let me tell you something, you're not going to see if your soul's corrupted.
Right.
That's good.
You're not going to see if there's all kinds of obstacles in your way.
Right.
Then you still see with your own perception. You still read the Bible with your own perception. You still understand and perceive things with your own perception.
iniquity. Come on.
Because the gates are shut. The
Right.
doors are not open.
Yeah.
I only hear what they teach me. I only hear what they say. I don't hear what God's speaking.
Right.
Come on now. Help me, Lord.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Remind yourself that men in white linen can help you with your scroll. But the key to receiving your destiny scroll is going there. Going into the court of scrolls and finding yours. There is an extreme knowledge in your spirit that your soul does not and has not tapped into yet. But the Father will show you when you go into the kingdom of heaven, and that is part of dividing soul and spirit. It's not something you can just go do, but in the same breath, it's part of your insight. Now, I stopped saying imagination because I found a better word.
Insight.
Insight.
Good.
It's that which you see on the inside. Because what you see on the inside is revealed to you by your spirit man. And thank you, Stephen, because he's kind of a friend of mine. One of my sons that texted me and said, I got a new word, a better one. Because I've had a problem with imagination because we think it's stuff we made up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's the enlightenment of my understanding, so it's what I see on the inside. It's what I see on the inside, and what I see on the inside is reflection. It's a reflection of what my spirit's showing me.
That's good.
So it's an image that my spirit's putting on the inside of me that I now project out. That's why I see something. whether it's a vision, whether it's an engagement, whether it's something I got to do. That's why my focus needs to be on what I see on the inside, because that's where your sight is.
Amen.
I don't see on the outside. Everything I look at, even in the natural, comes from the inside.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's upside down.
Yeah. That's right.
Talk about seeing is just not the most easiest thing on the planet. How do you understand that? It's just not easy. My parents, my father's glasses were so thick, if I put that on, I get drunk. My father's glasses. My mom, she could see, but she couldn't read without glasses. You know, the easiest thing for people to be affected is their sight.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what we're doing wrong to affect our eyes. When you go into, I used to work in nightclubs. My parents used to work in the mines. My father used to work in the mines. So because of the extreme noise, most of the people that I grew up with had hearing problems.
Yeah.
And of course, in my generation, and it's not so much nowadays, but it could still be, because now all the music's in your ear, right? Because you have your earphones on and in, which makes it probably even worse. But in my day, my parents used to say "in my day," and I thought, "Oh my God, help me, you're old." Now my father said, my children says, "Dad, you were born in the 1900s. You're ancient. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Okay, shutty uppy." But because of the nightclub scene, the hearing is affected. But what affects your sight? You know, I mean, yes, there's a lot of things that can affect your sight, but it's not something you're focused on.
Right.
Until one day you sit in front of the TV and you have to stand up to go read the writing. You can't see what's there, but yet your wife is sitting next to you, can see everything, and you're thinking, well, either you have bionic eyes or I've got a problem. Right? Remind yourself that you can engage with the saints, and not just the saints, but also the living beings within the heavens. The living letters can give you a great insight on your scroll. And engaging is engage. When I say engage, understand that it's something you have to go into.
All right.
It's a commitment you have to make.
That's good. Commitment.
But the key is that you go into the court of scrolls, you take your scroll, you eat your scroll. Bible talks about eating scrolls all the time. Right? As a matter of fact, if you know the Bible, it talks about eating your scrolls. If there's a scroll, it's being eaten. But the idea is that it goes into your spirit. Once you have taken it into your spirit, the idea is to get rid of all of who you are. Take your cross up daily. Present yourself to the Father as a living sacrifice. And how many of you understand, you cannot present yourself to the Father as a living sacrifice?
All right. That's good.
Just like the lamb cannot sacrifice himself.
That's good.
That would be impressive. That would really be impressive, but he can't. He has to be taken to the high priest.
Yeah.
The high priest takes him through a process, slit his throat, drain the blood, cut off his head, take off the skin, cut him open, take out the innards, clean him out, cut off the legs. And then when everything is done and he's cleaned out, he presents him to the Father
Yeah.
on the altar, and the fragrance is what brings pleasure. Right? And so we need to understand the Father's desire for you is to constantly find yourself in the kingdom of heaven, presenting yourself as a living sacrifice. Now, I remember taking my scroll, eating it, and I was just, it was like a process I was in. I was already in the process of presenting myself to the Father constantly as a living sacrifice, engaging in the heavens, just eating of Yeshua, just loving what I'm experiencing and loving what I'm seeing. And I remember, as I took the scroll and I ate it, I wanted to know what was on it. But I was immediately taken into a garden, into Eden, into a secret place, into a place of intense mystery. As a matter of fact, in my understanding at that point, I thought that no one's ever been there.
All right.
But it's not. It's a place of kings, and there's been many there. But I remember standing in a spot, and the Father was on a throne. I would say it was a throne, but there's so many thrones in the heavens. He was sitting on a throne, and he was just enjoying the atmosphere. How many of you understand that's why a king has a garden? A place where he finds rest, a place that he finds peace.
Yes.
And as I was standing there in front of him, I opened my chest like this, and inside of it was my scroll. But what came out of me was just black. Now, I was already an ordained pastor, already a minister for many years, and I thought to myself, who is this? Because that cannot come out of me. Of course, the Father just took a look at me and said, seriously? Because we don't know what's in our hearts until it's presented to the Father.
Amen.
You know, we have to begin to understand that the Father wants you pure. And it's not your actions per se that makes you impure.
Come on, come on.
Because sin is not what you do. Sin is who you are.
Oh, yeah.
That's why when I have to understand Jesus didn't die for me. He died as me and I live as Him. So I step into Him and He looks at me. Yahweh looks at me and sees Yeshua.
Yeah. Thank you, Lord.
So as I'm standing there, all this black stuff comes out of my chest and it literally goes into the Father. It's like He's taking it all upon Himself. And as it all ends up out of me and this light shines in and through me like intensely bright, I find myself in an engagement where I begin to see in a hologram how my spirit is established in a specific city. It starts vibrating and it multiplies. And it was a long encounter, and it just multiplied into every city, into every state, and in every city, in a state. And then it reestablished itself and started multiplying into every city in that state, and just kept doing that until it was in all 50 states. There was no timeline to it, but I woke up, and immediately, within a week, I started the first spirit school.
Come on, that's good.
And I changed the entire way of ministry. I could no longer do. Now, of course, for a period, I still kind of did very similar things to what I did because it has to get worked out of your system. But the Father has shown me exactly what I need to do. And I can no longer continue to doing it the way that I was taught to do it.
All right.
I was taught that everyone that needs to be in ministry has to be a pastor.
Yeah.
That's the only place that you can really do ministry out of. And from that place, you can become an evangelist. From that place, you can become a teacher. From that place, you can become an apostle or prophet. But a good idea would be to become a pastor. So we will finish Bible school in our mother church. I come from a mega church. Our pastor is Harold Weitz, Pastor Harold Weitz, awesome man of God. I honor him. I love him. He's literally mind-blowing. If you ever find yourself in a position where you want to learn the foundations and more, he's an intense man of God. If you want to study some of his books, he's got many books. He's got, his name is Harold Weitz. The church is called Little Falls Christian Center. He's got many messages on there. You can Google that. You can find it online. But I would urge you to listen to him minister. He's an intense man of God. He is phenomenal. But what we would do is they would let the men and women that want to go into ministry finish Bible school, and then they would fund them for the first 6 months. Wow. And they would fund them to go plant churches in different cities, different towns within the nation. And they will fund them for 6 months until they're self-sustained, and then they will be pastors. But how many, and I was one of them, that had to realize and find the hard way that I'm not called to be a pastor. That's not on my scroll.
Wow.
It's not nice to really, really, really suck at something. And it's all I ever wanted to do.
All right.
I mean, I gave my life to Jesus, and I just wanted to be a pastor. And I love preaching. That wasn't my problem. My problem was looking after the flock.
Yeah.
That first of all, doesn't want you to look after them.
Come on.
They don't want anything from you. And when you give them information, you tell them what to do, they reject what you say and do the exact opposite, get into a big fat mess, and come crawling back as if it was your fault. If you say something they don't like, they will leave the church and bite off your arm in the process, taking it with them. Talk bad behind your back and tell everybody how sucky and ungodly you are, but let there just be trouble and they all come crawling back again.
Yes, Lord.
I'm like, ish. I can't do that. But I know people that loves that.
Yeah, I guess so.
That has the ability to say things that just brings alignment. I can't do that. I'm not a pastor. I always say there's nothing motherly about me. I mean, I tried, but there's nothing motherly about me. I'm a father. And a father operates different than a mother.
Amen.
But that doesn't mean that if you're a pastor, that you're only maternal. Because in our mother church, our pastor is called a pastor, but he's an apostle. And the church structure is the Jethro system. which you have a senior pastor, district pastors. Then under the district pastors, you have zone supervisors. Under the zone supervisors, you have cell leaders. Under the cell leaders, you have assistant cell leaders. Under the assistant cell leaders, you've got group leaders.
All right.
And it breaks itself down into a group of 15,000 people.
All right.
So it's different than a smaller group of people, different than a smaller church.
Right.
But it's the same structure. And so for me to realize that I'm not a pastor, I'm thinking to myself, so what am I?
Right.
All right.
What I'm doing now is not even on the map.
Right.
Right.
I'm not an itinerant preacher. I don't know what I am. I just stick to the fact that I'm a king.
That's it.
Are you Gustav? Do we call you Apostle Gustav? No. Do we call you Prophet Gustav? No. Teacher? No. Pastor? No. Evangelist? No. I've done all of that. But before I came to America, I'm going to close with this. Before I came to America, we had a ministry where I was a professional wrestler for a very, very long time. And eventually I said to one of the promoters that asked me to wrestle for him again after we were on live TV for about 2 years, I said to him, well, I'll wrestle for you on one condition. After every match, after every promotion, you give me the mic. And 15 to 20 minutes to speak to the crowd. And it became such a big thing that all the churches started inviting us, because what we would do is when I took over the church in the town that I lived, we had a massive wrestling show before I took over the church. And what we did is we had a young man standing in the middle of the ring, and he was just walking around with his bag on his back, and he would, all of a sudden, a wrestler would come into the ring, and his name would be Doubt. Matter of fact, there was 2 doubts, and they would start beating him up. Then hate, then fear, then murder, then perversion, then drug addiction, violence, all these struggling things, the things that we find ourselves struggling with, would come in and beat him up. Eventually he's half dead. They've already started attacking each other just to get to him. So there's this massive fight in the ring, and then he falls on his knees and he screams out to God, God, just give me faith. And of course I come running into the ring as faith, kick everybody out, beat everybody up, and set him free and start preaching a message.
Right.
Do an altar call and have had great success doing it. That's evangelical. But I'm no longer an evangelist. I don't have those opportunities anymore. I'm busy 6 days a week. If I still have to go into the streets to do ministry in New Orleans or wherever, I will never see my family.
All right.
And do I have meetings where I can lead people to Jesus? No, I don't. Do I speak to people about Jesus all the time? I can't help myself. I remember being in a sauna and it was full of people. I mean, it's not nice to go into a sauna that's full of naked men. Well, for us.
That's right.
For men. And you're not supposed to be naked. One. You're supposed to have a towel around you, or you're supposed to be in your underwear. So as I'm stepping into this room, I think to myself, oh, I want to sit in the sauna for 10 minutes. There's too many people. So I stand in the door and I shut it and I say, who of you knows Jesus?
Clear them up.
I cleared that room in 5 seconds. I had 2 people left, and we sat and talked about God because they were Christians. That was fun. That's funny. But the idea of your scroll is that you have to go find it. And it's key to the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Let's stand. You guys okay?
Yes, Lord. Amen.
Father, there's so much that I know that you want to reveal to us. There's so much that you want to teach us, so much that we need to know. And it's not stuff that we've been taught. It's not stuff that we can make notes of and go back to. There's no books that we can go to. Even our perception of the word overshadows all of this revelation that you're pouring in, Father. But we have to be reminded that our perception of the word is not your perception of the word. You will not overshadow your word, but you will overshadow our perception. And the things we think we know, we don't know. So, Father, I ask that we will lay aside the things and the revelations we had, and we'll begin to open our spirit up so you can begin to teach us directly out of Zion, so we can begin to know what needs to be happening, so we can experience the fullness of what you're revealing to us and the mysteries and the secrets of today. And Father, I ask for everyone in this room to go into the heavens and take their scrolls. I pray, Father, you will open our hearts up and let us go in. I pray for peace and rest.
Yes.
Because it's the key to your desire. It's the key because stress and panic and, oh, there's too much, I don't know what to do, I can't find it, it's not there, I don't see anything, it's just going to get you to the place where you don't want to do it anymore. It's persistence that gets you to where you need to be. You cannot eat an elephant at once.
Thank you.
But consistently, you take a bite over a period of time, and eventually you'll get halfway. Remind yourself that our God is infinite, eternal. There's much to Him that we haven't even touched base on yet. We haven't even touched the hem of His garment yet, but yet we think we know Him. We think we know everything about Him. What we know up to this point is nothing compared to what He wants to teach us. So Father, we want to open our hearts up to what you have for us, and we want to run with the fullness of it. We love you, we praise you, we thank you in the name of Yeshua. Amen.